Brought to you by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey.
We are honored to be joined by the Honorable Mayor of the great city of Newark, Ras Baraka, who was part of a compelling and very honest conversation we had, simply called Building Trust, Race, Police, and the Community that we just had here at the North Ward Center in Newark, New Jersey. Mr. Mayor, what was the biggest takeaway for you? About an hour and a half, back and forth, law enforcement professionals, community leaders, religious leaders, yourself, others. What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, that, we have at least a critical mass of folks in the city, at least in leadership, that are interested in moving this from a problem to a solution, that there are people that acknowledge the kind of things that are going on in the city and that have been going on for a long period of time, and that they're willing to humble themselves, get involved, and try to fix this.
I've talked to a lot of people, in your administration and outside, who have said there's something happening in Newark, that even though there's a federal monitor through the Department of Justice, Peter Harvey, the former Attorney General of the state of New Jersey, overseeing, if you will, the Newark Police Department. But there were a lot of problems before you took office in terms of who was being stopped, why they're being stopped, unjustified. That Newark has got something going that's positive, that's better than other cities as it relates to police-minority relations. You buy that?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I want the evidence to bear it out in the kind of community surveys that we are trying to get done. I do think that there is, as I said earlier, a groundswell of folks that are ready to tackle this problem. And I think because we have that, you have a trajectory that's leading us in another direction where we have at least felt like we have the courage to talk about the problem, to discuss it.
Does it take courage?
Yes, it takes a lot of courage to admit things have been wrong for a long period of time, and that, frankly, people have been a part of that, the things that haven't been working, and admit our role in it, admit folks' role in it, and begin to move it forward in another direction. And there's a lot of things happening, from the Civilian Review Board to opportunities for the police to have better relationships with the police, cops and kids programs, whether you're bringing back the community policing model, all of these things that we're trying to do to just change that entire relationship and move where we have a real police department that's a part of the community and not occupying the community.
I remember you joined my colleague and I, Raphael Puroman, a few years ago on public broadcasting. You talked about the Civilian Review Board and you said it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was skeptical. I said, that's never going to happen. First of all, explain to folks what it is. Mm-hmm. And second of all, why it's so important. Third of all, how the heck did it happen? A loaded question, I know. But I mean, a lot of folks said never.
Right. Well, we're not completely out of the woods yet, but the Civilian Review Board is just civilian oversight. And that is what even the federal monitor said, that we need civilian oversight.
Of the police department.
Of the police department.
So give us folks an example. Something happens, we're actually here, right here in the city of Newark. Mount Prospect Avenue is a main thoroughfare here.
Right.
An incident happens on Mount Prospect Avenue between the police and a citizen. Go ahead.
So right now you have internal affairs. Like, people can make complaints to internal affairs. The problem with internal affairs is, in the report, it said that almost none of the reports that were given to internal affairs amounted to anything.
So cops never did anything wrong?
Well, that's what it appeared at.
That's what I say. The internal affairs report would say that.
Absolutely. Or not enough to actually have them disciplined for it. And, so what we wanted to do is create a separate body, a separate kind of neutral body that reviews some of those similar cases, and not just cases, but patterns and practices in the police department too. And based on a matrix that's designed by the police department and community input, that would, not in an arbitrary way, say, this is what a police officer has done, and this is what we think should be the answer to their transgression. And, ultimately, the police director, the mayor, other folks have to weigh in, but, you need a board that has oversight that says something went wrong here and it has to be fixed, whether it was the individual's behavior, whether it's a practice that allowed this, or a policy that you have in place that kind of supports this kind of thing. So they get to respond, and it actually gives the community more confidence and faith that the police are held to another standard. But also, police can use the Civilian Police Review Board as well.
How? Because there are some police professionals who we spoke to when this was all being talked about, who said, bigger picture, they said, in theory, it's okay. But what about if cops started worrying about how they would be analyzed by non-law enforcement professionals who really don't understand
Right.
and can empathize with our lives and what it's really like to be out on the street? You say?
Well, I say that the military has more oversight than the police department, right? So there's things that you do in the military, right? You have a Senate oversight committee. You have folks that are there. You can actually get in real trouble, right? You can be court-martialed. There's all kinds of things that can happen to you. In the police department is a free-for-all, right? So if the United States government can oversee military operations and bring people over here for acts that they think were inhumane, I think we at a local level should at least have the authority to do the same with local police officers who are in our community every day. And because we've put the power of life and death in their hands, they should have some scrutiny and some oversight, right? Because they have the ability to walk away and allow you to live, and they have the ability to take your life on the spot.
Mr. Mayor, we're doing this program as we approach the holidays 2016. We will have a new president in 2017. This program will air after. That new president, Donald Trump, has spoken out on police-minority relations. He's expressed his perspective on things, at least during the campaign.
Right.
What are your thoughts about what it could mean for police-minority relations in this state, the city, the state, and the nation?
It's incredibly scary. I mean, you have somebody like Giuliani who was running around the country as a surrogate saying all manners of things that I think that were worse than disrespectful and insensitive, and the president-elect the same.
What do you mean?
Well, they had no sympathy at all for even the movement of Black Lives Matter. They think that by itself equated anti-police, and so it means that movement is in jeopardy. It also they were against or negative around all of the kind of reforms and the discussion about reforms in police department. So first, they don't even admit that there's something wrong, and therein lies the problem, right? So you have the first hurdle is to admit there's an issue, and they haven't even admitted that. They agree that stop and frisk should happen.
Explain to folks. Donald Trump, when he was a candidate, said, I believe he said stop and frisk was a good thing.
Sure.
Explain to folks what stop and frisk means.
And so did Rudolph, and so did Giuliani, right? So at the end of the day, stop and frisk means that you go into communities and you just stop people randomly and you search them, which is a violation of your constitutional rights, by the way.
It's been declared unconstitutional.
It's been declared unconstitutional. You can't just stop people without cause and frisk them because they live in a specific area.
And a president can't change that.
Right, and in a specific area. But what he can do is create a climate where people believe that to do that is lawful and is right, and the people who are opposed to it are these like politically correct rebellious individuals who are trying to stop police officers from doing their job.
But Donald Trump says he wants to bring people together. You say.
Well, let's hope. We have to wait and see that. I don't think there's been no evidence of that yet. I mean, to appoint people who are not just polarizing, but are outright racist and anti-Semitic and all kinds of other things to different offices does not make me believe that we're going to go in a direction where we're going to bring this thing to some kind of conclusion or discussion about how do we fix this. It makes it a scarier notion for most people who are involved in this, who thought that we were going to finally maybe get somewhere as it related to this for a very, very long time.
Last question. President Obama, his legacy as it relates to this incredibly complex but maybe the issue of our time, police-minority relations, how would you assess President Obama?
Well, I think history is going to be very favorable to the president. I mean, obviously, many of us, wanted him to push even further and harder and faster. That's just the nature of it.
In terms of reforms in this area?
In terms of reforms, in terms of many things, right? In terms of statements and reforms and pushing. And I think he did a considerable, he did a lot, in his presidency, but we obviously wanted more and more and more to happen. And I feel like that everything that he's done is going to be erased. So it almost makes us like...
You're usually so optimistic.
Yeah, I am. So it makes us, regret the fact, of even the smallest criticism we have of the president when he was in office, that we may be getting what we're getting. And you have to excuse me if I don't have any faith in the gentleman who's about to be the president of the United States based on how he ran for office and the things that he was saying. And it scares me that Americans could ignore racism and ignore sexism and ignore misogyny and elect him as the president of the United States. It's a scary notion for me to make me believe there are millions and millions of people in this country who don't think that doing and saying anything that this guy did during his election is enough to not make him our commander-in-chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
I work for Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I'm a catastrophic case manager. I'm a nurse. I feel a sense of responsibility to each and every member that I speak with on the phone. I know where they live, I know their towns, I know the hospitals they go to. A lot of times I know their physicians, and I love helping people at very difficult times of their lives. The job I have now is the perfect job for me. I think I was born a nurse.
Also brought to you by NJM, the North Ward Center, and by Seton Hall University.